Queen's University is looking into an off-campus party where students allegedly wore culturally inappropriate costumes.
It is happening all across the Western democracies, and it can happen in Canada too.
Political commentator Van Jones was in Toronto to warn Canadians a politician like Donald Trump could succeed here.
We're dealing with, close to 200 years of history.
Public meetings are being held as to what to do with Old City Hall once the provincial courts vacate in 2021. Hi, and welcome to Humber News. I'm Catherine Ellsworth, coming to you from our newsroom here at Humber College North Campus. Queen's University is under scrutiny for a costume party where undergrad students wore what's being called racist and culturally degrading outfits. Photos surfaced from a party on Saturday showing mostly white students wearing racially stereotypical costumes. A statement from Queen's principal Daniel Wolf says an event that degrades, mocks, or marginalizes a group of people is unacceptable. The statement says no event of this kind would be sanctioned by the university senior administration. He says they are taking the matter seriously and continue to look into it. The Queen's student government has condemned the party as well, saying it was inappropriate and the act makes students uncomfortable. A political commentator and former White House advisor is warning Canadians that they are not immune to the rising incidences of racism. Van Jones was speaking to journalists last night in Toronto. He says Canada must be vigilant in standing up to what he's calling a hate wave. Jones coined the term white lash to describe Donald Trump's victory in the U.S. election. Meanwhile, it appears the U.S. President-elect Donald Trump is softening some of the stance he took during the election campaign. During an interview with the New York Times, Trump said there is a connection between human activity and climate change. He previously described global warming as a hoax. Climate change wasn't the only topic on hand during the interview with the Times. He also says he no longer wants to hurt the Clintons and wishes to move on. German Chancellor Angela Merkel says she supports efforts to fight hate speech on social media. German authorities have started monitoring platforms such as Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. They're running a program to see how many racist posts are taken down within 24 hours. The program will run until March. The Dutch Justice Minister says if the results aren't good enough by then, they will take legislative measures. A 53-year-old British man has been sentenced to life in prison for a murder of Labour MP Jo Cox.
Jo Cox, MP, championed the democracy and inclusivity of this country, and for that, she paid the ultimate price.
Cox was shot and stabbed to death near Leeds by Thomas Mayer during the EU referendum campaign in June. Testimony showed Mayer was infatuated with the notion of white supremacy and Nazism. Police testified it was a premeditated murder. The judge told Mayer he was no patriot.
Thomas Mayer is a cold-blooded killer. He calmly planned her death, he lay in wait, and then killed Jo in a sustained...
Mayer's request to address the court was denied, and he was told he already had his chance to explain himself. Back at home, a five-alarm fire is burning in downtown Montreal. It broke out a few hours ago in a vacant building under construction on Park Street. Officials say the fire has now spread to the restaurant next door. They say the building has been used by squatters recently. More than 120 firefighters are on the scene. Firefighters say no one has been hurt so far. The fate of Toronto's historic Old City Hall is up in the air. The courts are set to vacate Old City Hall by 2021. City officials have been holding public meetings to plan the future of the building. Architects working with the city say it could be turned into a museum or retail space, but the cost of the renovations are still unclear. The end of the semester is around the corner, and with that comes plenty of stress. Our reporter Alwyn Navarro-Fenoy has details on how Humber students are dealing with the pressure.
Ignite is holding their Wellness Day in the Student Center until 3 p.m. today. The goal of the event is to relieve students from school-related stress. The event offers students activities like painting, coloring, and DIY t-shirts.
We spoke to a couple Humber students to see how they're coping with the end of the semester and exam season.
Well, usually I start studying like way in advance. I just do like a little bit a day. I read a lot on my commute.
I feel like if you're good at managing time, you should be fine. Like you manage time, spend time to study, spend time to just relax, well rested, and just kind of manage how you do things.
My advice to you is whether you're in a slump or you're trying to maintain a certain grade, just keep at it, work hard, and whatever happens, happens. Because really at the end of the day, you're only here just to learn and try your best.
Writing, highlighting, reading, and looking through exam reviews are just some ways to help students feel a little less stressed when it comes to preparing for the end of the school year. Alwyn Navarro-Fenoy, Humber News.
Sometimes we procrastinate, sometimes we forget, but whatever the reason, sometimes those library fines can really add up. There's a better way to pay off those debts. We got the details from Ruth Escarlon.
For the third year in a row, the Humber Library is holding its Food for Fines drive. Staff and students will get $2 off their library fine for every donated non-perishable food item. But there's a $20 cap on savings. All donations go to Youth Without Shelter, and the drive will end on December 9th. The director of Humber's Libraries, Lynn Bentley, says students were happy to take part in previous years. She personally loaded the donations in her car and dropped the food at the shelter.
The food that we collect is helping students when they leave the shelter and get set up in their own rental accommodation, that they have some food to put on their shelves.
Bentley says she's seen how the process works and that some of the young people at the shelter include Humber students. Circulation clerk Shikta Costa explains how library fines work.
It's $2 per day. So every day it will go like, $2, so $4, $6. And then for 2 weeks books is only 25 cents for each day. So that's how the, fines actually build.
With the holiday upon us, the Humber Library is running their annual Food for Fines. If you've got a library fine on your account, kill two birds with one stone and donate non-perishable food. Ruth Escarlon, Humber News.
We're getting our first blast of cold, snowy weather this week. And that means it's time for Toronto drivers to brush up on their skills before they have to brush off their cars. Our reporter Caitlin Patrick has more on the story.
Winter is fast approaching, and the Weather Network is predicting a cold and stormy one for Canada. The temperature is dropping in the GTA, and soon enough, weather conditions will turn Toronto streets into a nightmare. So when is the best time to get your car ready for winter? Chad Oakley, a Richmond Hill firefighter, talked to Humber News about how and when to prepare your car for the winter months.
We recommend pretty much after Thanksgiving, like well before the snow comes. Look at winter tires, while you have the tires off, inspect your brakes, brake lines, check for corrosion, make sure the heat works and the defrost works in your car. You don't want to be on the road and find out you don't have any defrost. We recommend well before the winter.
The Government of Canada suggests keeping an emergency kit in your vehicle. Water, a warm blanket, and a first aid kit are just a few things you should keep in your car. Transit, on the other hand, is a whole other nightmare. One Humber student says that the TTC is the most unreliable during the winter.
Horrible! That's one word to describe it. It's slow. I come from only 10-minute drive and it takes me like an hour and a half just to get to school. I try to catch the bus, but TTC, you miss it. And you have to wait another like 30 minutes, especially in the snow, for the next one to come.
With winter less than a month away, I think it's safe to say the cold weather's here to stay. So get those winter tires on and dress warm. Caitlin Patrick, Humber News.
When we come back, we'll tell you what's happening in the world of sports, and Chris Bessick will have your 3-day forecast.
Sun and clouds. The temperature is expected to drop as the day goes on. There's also a possible chance of rain and snow later on in the day. I'll have your 3-day forecast after the break.
But first, art collectors in Asia are getting their first chance to get their hands on some very famous paintings. For the first time, a collection by prominent Western artists will be up for auction at the private sale in Hong Kong. International auction house Christie's has organized the sale of works of Picasso, Van Gogh, Monet, and Warhol. The collection is the first private sale by the auction house in Asia.